welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Scissortail Podcast. You've got both hosts here together, face to face, in the beautiful
Scissortail Studio.
Scissortail Podcast Studio. There's no delay. We're not speaking to each other from 1,500 miles away. I myself am Porter Cunningham, as always, joined by my co-host Will Bowersox. Will, say hello to the people.
Sweet, sweet listeners. It is great to be with you in a virtual setting at the very least.
So we're here face to face. Hopefully we'll have some good chemistry now. Maybe this thing will get up off the ground, be a little bit better. But
I'd say the sparks are flying.
Indeed. Those turtle shell glasses just look great on you.
Thank you.
We want to get started and run through signings real quick because we have a big episode this week. A lot of content, a lot of stuff to talk about. So we're going to dive right in. Briefly mention everybody that we think we know is signed so far. Starting with, seems like forever ago, the team announced Daniel Fernandez, the non-Canadian, Canadian Portuguese goalkeeper. So he's the second goalkeeper that the team has officially signed, and he last played for San Antonio, so another Scorpion joining the roster.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's good that chemistry is there with familiarity with Marcina. Next player, and I'm going to butcher two pronunciations here, but one on. He's a defender. He's from Spain. Most recently played for Leganés in the Spanish second division. So I guess I'm going to spoil a little bit of what the general manager interview is, but I'm just assuming that this is a player that the Rayo Vallecano club has had their eye on and wants to give him a platform to prove himself. So here he is.
Sure. And then, mixing that chemistry up, the next two players, both straight out of college. So there we see the dynamic of Spanish league players who may come over and play, but we've also got Hudson. I believe Hugo is what he goes by. Could be incorrect there. Hopefully he listens and corrects us.
Do you think that could get confusing on the pitch when they're like Hugo and it's like Hugo of like Spanish?
Hugo. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll definitely ask.
We'll ask. All right. So Hudson Rhodes, he's a defender. He last played for the University of Portland. And then Ian Svantesson is also an American defender, despite what you might think by his name. I actually had to look it up, but he's hails from the U.S., and he played for the University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Who, by the way, quick shout out to them for their college football program coming back to life. That's a great story. You should Google it. The next player is Marvin Chavez. I guess this was the player that had been teased as the player with World Cup experience. He's played in, I suppose, 2 World Cups now for the Honduras. I know nothing about him. I'm sure he's a great player. If he played in 2 World Cups and Honduras made the final tournament the last two times around, and is another player with Scorpions experience, so he should be a really nice boost to the roster.
I did see one real quick clip of him making. I think he played in the MLS, and I don't remember what team he specifically played for. It might have been FC Dallas, but he made somebody look foolish with a step over, and then he smiled after it. So that was pretty funny.
Good, yeah.
Hope to see a lot of that. And then he's joined by his countryman, Eric Norales, who Franco had been teasing for a long time. Knew he was part of the team, and they just hadn't announced him yet. The Honduran defender last played for Indy 11. So another Honduran and another person with NASL experience coming to the squad.
Yeah, and the last player to announce is a guy named Jared Von Schaik. And he, another recent graduate from the University of Portland, so I guess we have that pipeline now to the Pacific Northwest.
That's right. Where are the Timbers at?
Yeah.
Where's the Timbers 2 at? I mean, we're right there in the backyard.
Oklahoma City has all the coffee shops now, so now we have the Defenders.
That's right.
He's a midfield player, and most recently he comes to us. I guess he's not a recent graduate, but he most recently played for the Battery of Charleston, South Carolina in the USL. So welcome, Jared, to our fair burg.
Welcome everybody, and obviously there's more players out there that the team hasn't announced yet. We'll talk about some more of them later. But one thing I know that's kind of grinding my gears, Will, when I try to put this episode together is, I guess Wikipedia is the best place right now that I can find as a source to see who the team's actually signed. The team website is not being kept up to date in terms of signings, so I kind of had to scroll back through Twitter feeds and Wikipedia to put that list.
Yeah,
together.
it's been funny following on social media. People are grabbing the screenshots of the pictures that are coming out of training camp, saying, "Hey, who's that guy? Who's that guy?" But I mean, frankly, it's good, right? It's better that the team website is not perfect. You would want them to have more important things to do than, update the Squarespace page or whatever it is they're doing.
That's probably right. Yeah. They're not worried about taking individual pictures right now. They're actually worried about finishing out the team. So,
all right. So that quick first segment, just getting caught up on the signings from the last couple days. We will take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got a great guest coming on the podcast. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Scissortail Podcast. This is your co-host, Porter Cunningham, and I am very happy to report that I have with me on the line the general manager of Rayo OKC, Eric Neuendorp. Eric is on. He's going to answer some really important pressing questions that not only Will and I have had over the course of these first few episodes, but I know a lot in the NASL community have asked. So, Eric, we really appreciate you joining us this evening.
It's my distinct pleasure, Porter. I appreciate for the invite and looking forward to it, so thank you.
Indeed. Well, let's get started. I know we have a lot to ask you, so let's just give the listeners a little bit of background. Tell us about yourself, your background with professional sports franchises, and specifically how you came to be a part of the Rayo OKC organization.
Sure. Well, I got started in the sports industry, 22 years ago as a public relations intern for the old Oklahoma City Blazers of the Central Hockey League back when it was just starting out again. And, of course, that's how I met Brad Lund, who's one of our managing partners. And then Debray Ayala came on a little bit after I was there. I was hired the next year and worked to manage that organization and that franchise for about the first 10 years when the Blazers were then picked up by Express Sports. We did many other things. We did golf tournaments and tennis tournaments and kind of I oversaw some of the business development there, but mostly spent my time with the organization in public and media relations, sales, marketing, did some ticket sales management. After that, I bounced around, and without going through every stop along my career path, I basically have started up, now I think with this franchise, it's my fifth or sixth professional sport franchise to help launch, and I had stops along the way, University of Tulsa, working as the general manager of that property there. I had a stint for about 2 years in Major League Soccer with FC Dallas when we were transitioning that franchise from the Cotton Bowl as the Dallas Burn into what was then becoming Pizza Hut Park and FC Dallas when the rebranding and all that happened. So spent some time there. But if you name a job in sports, I've pretty much done it and worked with most, in some capacity with most major sports other than baseball. But most recently was here in Tulsa with the WNBA franchise that I helped launch 6 years ago. That franchise chose to relocate to Dallas. That's not some place that I was necessarily wanting to go because of family considerations and other things, and we couldn't quite work out an agreement. And it just so happened that the timing of it came about with this launch of this franchise. And because of my history with Debray and Brad and our friendship and the fact that we had worked together all those years ago, it just worked out. And they asked me if I'd like to join, and I said, of course. They knew I'd been a soccer fan all my life. We'd talked about soccer for many, many hours back in the days when we used to work together. And, of course, I'd known about their project that they've been working on for 2 or 3 years, was intimately aware, just again, as their friend and their colleague. And it was really a matter of timing, to be honest with you. So very, very pleased to jump on board, as crazy as it is, considering our timelines we can talk about. But anyway, so that's kind of a long answer to say I've been doing this for quite a while and and have experience with this very thing, which is launching pro sports franchises in short windows. So I'm not necessarily bragging about that. I just seem to fall into them, but I'm uniquely situated to know everything that's involved in that. So here I am.
And that's really good to hear for us. I know those of us who consider ourselves diehard supporters of the team, and those of us that have followed the team through the ups and downs the last few years. I guess the organization, there was no team there for a while, but just following the organization,
Right.
It's good to hear that they found someone who has a lot of experience in starting up franchises and on the bigger stage. So speaking of that, I know that you and I had talked briefly at the player review last week about how the last few months have been. So if you want to take a few minutes and describe that, I don't know if it's possible to describe that in a few sentences, but tell us what's been going on in your world in the last few months and how crazy that's been.
It is. I really started working in earnest, I would say sort of late October, early November. You know what it's like, the holidays, it's tough to get a lot of things done, but knowing that we were kind of really getting going. And when I say get going, the DeBray and Brad and these guys and Sean that, of course, had found Mr. Prenza and Brett, Mr. Pressa, and got the ownership group going. They've been working on it in concept for a while, but when you actually then say, okay, we're going to launch the thing, and you put together a time to hold your press conference and it goes real, there wasn't a whole lot of infrastructure there. Of course, they had an office and had a couple of people they'd been working with, but you really start from scratch. And if you think about what that's like to say, okay, let's say November 1, let's really get going, and they bring me on, and now what do we do? Obviously, they had a budget and gone over some things, and those guys are bright and been in the business too, so they know what they were doing. But it's different when you all say, okay, now we're going to do this, now what? And you have to look at hiring staff and finding an office and all the little details you can imagine on a startup business. Well, any startup business takes a while to do. A professional sports franchise, you really need 12 to 18 months. I mean, ideally, you'd like to have 18 months. 12 months, you could get away with it. 6 months, you're pushing it. 4 months, we're crazy. I mean, just crazy in the head. But what came down to it is that, they knew that they'd been waiting for so long and were itching to go, and they didn't really want to give the market over for another year while they sort of got out there and got things going. And so they thought, no, it's going to be crazy as it is. Let's go ahead and launch in the spring, and we're going to just get it done. So I said, you bet, let's go. Let's get it going. So I started working in earnest, I'd say in November, and, had a few meetings with potential sponsors, again, trying to find staff members and just putting things together. But you really kind of get a month combined of work when you're talking about November and December with holidays and all those things. So we sort of officially launched, I'd say, January 4th, which was that Monday coming back after the break. And so from January 4 till, I'd say, March 15th is about how much time we have to get everything up and running. Now, granted, we don't play a home game until April 2nd, but that last 2 weeks, you're really kind of putting the finishing touches on things. You're doing dress rehearsals. You're making sure you know how to set things up. You're making sure all the lights are coming on and all your videos work and all your print publications are coming back in, and there's just a million little details that you've got to do every single day. But that last 2 weeks, it gets kind of crazy. You want to make sure you sort of have the opening night's a good show. So since really January 4th through now, it's been beefing up the staff. Obviously, we got Alan on board, and just everything you can think of going to and launching a franchise we've had to do, finding offices and picking phones so we're trying to do everything simultaneously, not only hiring staff and training staff, but also trying to get out in the market and sign up members, talk to the market, sponsors and potential sponsors about coming on board and supporting our team and getting our vision out there and letting people know where our history comes from and why we're doing this and educating the market and all those kinds of things you can imagine we do. So it's just nuts. I mean, it's nuts in a good way. Thank goodness we have good folks like you, and we've got great supporters coming up and members that are joining on board. It's been very, very positive. But there's just lots and lots of details to go into it. Like I said, I could spend probably 2 hours just telling you about everything we do. But on a daily basis, it's just really everything you can think of to get a pro sports franchise off the ground and doing it right. It's one thing to do it. It's another thing to do it at the level we're trying to, and with the high quality standards that myself and Brad and DeBray and everybody that we bring in on the office, are trying to provide to the market and to our fans. And so, it's one, like I said, it's one thing to do it. It's another thing to try to do it to the standards that we want. So it's very, very busy, very active. A lot of long nights and long days, but I knew what I was in for when I signed up for it, and we're going to make it work.
That definitely sounds like a very exciting time to work for Rayo OKC. Doesn't sound like there's very many dull moments around the office. But it's good that you mentioned opening night, because I really want to know, and I know a lot of people out there in the NASL community want to know, what can we expect, as you drive up to Miller Stadium on opening night, or really any night, any nice summer or fall evening this season, this spring fall season. What can you expect as a fan and as a consumer showing up to a Rayo OKC home game?
Our expectations is that our fans can expect and will experience a major league professional sporting event. Given that, as all companies do, we have budget considerations and time constraints and all those kinds of things, we'll do what we can given those things. But with all that being said, our philosophy has always been, and has been back when we were running the hockey team and every place I've been, is that, if you're going to do something, you've got to do it right. Not only do you have one chance to make a first impression, but even if you're not just trying to make a first impression, that you've got to bring it night in and night out. So, specific things, we're taking a stadium that is a beautiful stadium, has a lot of great, very positive things for it, but is also still just a high school stadium, and that's not condescending or putting down at all. It's a fantastic facility, and the folks that we're working with out there are going to be great partners. But they know and understand that there are things that we need to do to use our slogan in this year, elevate that experience from a great high school football game experience to an expected professional sports experience. What does that mean? That's everything from team branding and signage, basically converting that stadium into Rayo OKC's home pitch, home field, from a branding perspective. That's picking the right music, that's having the right videos, that's having the right on-field experience, from having a beer garden or a party tent to having field-level boxes, which are our version of courtside seats, to having group tents on the field that people can come and experience it from that level, to what kind of food and beverage we provide. I spent a lot of time in the last couple of days and last really few weeks trying to figure out what we're going to do on a concession standpoint, for food and beverage. It's a great facility, but they, from that perspective, they sell, hot dogs and nachos and popcorn and sodas, and that's great. And we'll have those things and you want them. But, how can I provide food that's burgers and brats and, barbecue or street tacos and just all those different things, Porter, that go into really delivering a major league fan experience from the moment you're pulling into the parking lot to the moment you're leaving the parking lot. And that's everything. And there are a million details and tons of partners that we're bringing in, and a lot of good, hardworking people that when we talk about that vision, they buy into it. And it takes just good old-fashioned hard work and resources, to be honest with you, resources of time and money and people. And if you put all those things together, you can do that. Porter, we have to do it on a temporary basis, which means just the way the nature of our relationship is with the Yukon Public Schools and everything they've got going in that facility for all their wonderful high school athletics. We've got to put on a show and take down, set up for a show, as it were, and take down for a show, and a show being a game. So it has to be very portable. It has to be things that we can do, on a nightly basis, because there might not be a whole opportunity for us to do where we set things up and leave them up for long stretches of time, again, just because of the nature of us sharing that stadium. So just all these different things going on, how we can do that. How can we deliver that high standard, high quality fan experience that people know when they go to high-level sporting events. And we'll make mistakes. We won't get everything right. But what we don't get right, we're going to remedy to fix and change. And, again, we say we're the fans team. We're going to listen. We're going to react. We're going to respond. We're going to bring in best practices. We want to be a franchise that's an innovator. We want to be a franchise that is the league leader in terms of how we do things. We want to be the franchise that other teams look to and go, wow, how are they doing that? How are they getting that done? Again, taking good ideas from other teams. But we want to be that franchise that's a model franchise. And that's everything we do. We got the right coach for that. We're trusting him that he's bringing the right players for that philosophy. I guarantee every day our staff hears from me about that philosophy and giving it their all. And, I guess the quickest way is we want the highest level fan experience we can do. And, again, that involves everything you could imagine that you need to do that at a sporting event, pitch level all the way up to folks in the parking lot. And we work every single day to provide that experience come opening night, and really every night. But opening night's so critical because, people want to say, well, how are these guys going to do this? And let's wait and see. And, yeah, we'll go check them out in the first night, but, are they going to prove it? And we've got to prove it. We've got to bring it. And so every day, we're pushing to bring it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the concern, there was some concern out there, specifically among the NASL community, people who aren't familiar with the Oklahoma Metro, when they just hear Yukon High School, quote unquote football stadium, because that's what it is primarily. And when we've already had some contact with FC Edmonton supporters, and they said, hey, where's the stadium? We're Googling it. We're trying to figure out where to stay in hotels. So I think they're going to be really pleasantly surprised when they come down and they see this is not just a high school football stadium. This is a $14 million multi-sport facility that is really, really nice. And speaking of that football aspect, I know one specific question we've had is the turf itself. Are we going to be playing on a turf with football lines? Do you have an answer to that yet?
I do, and let me, and I'll address that in just a second. But let me address some of those concerns around the NSL community, the wonderful community I'm getting to know through social media and the good work you do, and colleagues such as yourself in other markets. I've really had a lot of fun following and liking and becoming followers of other teams and supporters groups. Really good, passionate fans here, and this league is really, really growing and doing some great things. And again, we want to be a model franchise in that league. We want to be the franchise that people look to. But I'll talk about that stadium. Now, the stadium, people think high school stadium, but this is a stadium that was built to a $90 million bond, if I think I have my math right, a $90 million bond issue. They're very, very proud of it, and they should be. We're lucky that it looks like our home stadium already because Yukon Miller, the athletics, is red and black. It happens to be the Mustang is red and black. So if we sort of move in, it looks like our home stadium anyway. It's very easy to get to. There's plenty of parking. I've heard the lights are incredible. I haven't seen those turned on yet, but I was out there 2 weeks ago with a colleague in the office, Holly Latrue, and we were testing out the sound system, looking at the video board and finding out its capabilities and wondering if we were going to have to supplement any of that. And I think we're going to be able to leave things as they were and have plenty of capabilities. It's a wonderful system. So this isn't just your quote unquote average high school stadium. It's the nicest high school stadium in the state for now. I mean, everybody's always trying to do everybody, but for now, it's the nicest high school stadium in the state. And all we're trying to do is take a great base level product, great base level venue that they've provided us through our partnership, and just trying to crank it up a little bit so it becomes a professional sporting event in what is already a really nice stadium. It's the perfect size for us. It's the perfect colors for us. Is it perfect all the way around? No. There are some things I wish it had. But again, when they built it, they had no idea at all that they were going to be hosting a professional sport franchise there. So it's a wonderful facility. It's easy to get to. I think people, like you say, Porter, will be pleasantly surprised, and it's our job to make sure that when you're pulling in, you're going, wait a second. Okay. Yeah. I got all the signage looks good, and it's easy to get in and out of, and the food is really, really good, and the beer is cold, and the music's great, and the team's kicking butt, and just a full-on experience. So part of that experience does go to your question, which is, what is the pitch going to look like? What's the field going to look like? I've spent a lot of time and energy researching over the last couple of months about what that is. It's important to us, and definitely important to NASL and us being the team management, that it looks like a soccer field, that we're not playing on football grid lines. Even if that means that we're going to paint the thing and that you might faintly see the football grid lines come through. It's a wonderful turf facility, a turf field. It's a custom piece of carpet, so to say, where it has the inlaid football grid line. So it's not easy to sort of just wipe it out, as it were, to make it go away. So we're exploring paint options. We're exploring investing into, a state-of-the-art field turf system that we would bring in and construct and actually place over the top of that field. But at least for the first half, and if I have my druthers for every single home game that we have, when you're watching a soccer game, you're going to know that you're playing on a soccer field. It has some limitations. Honestly, it's a little narrow for my liking. It's a little narrow for Alan's liking and everybody's liking, but it is what it is. We hope to provide a pitch that's 75 to 80 yards wide. It's obviously 120 yards long, standard length there. So a little bit narrow. What does that mean? Makes for, speed is going to be at a premium, right? So it could play in our favor. But in terms of the way that it's going to look, it's going to look like a soccer field. And without getting into real numbers, it's going to be a significant investment either way, whether we choose the paint option or we choose the field turf option. We're going to get it done. That's from the product, the supplies, sourcing the labor. Again, not an inexpensive venture and no easy answer either way, but our goal is to do it and do it right. And the last thing I want is when diehard soccer fans come, and they're watching a game, it looks like, they're kind of making out the soccer field lines markings over a football grid. So our goal is to, again, make it look like a professional soccer pitch. Even if we paint it, we might not be able to completely eliminate the faint markings of the football field underneath, but the dominant image that we will see is a soccer pitch.
That's great. Great to hear. And a really interesting tidbit about the width of the field, certainly not something I had thought about. And for those casual listeners that may be out there listening to this, unlike an American football field, which has very strict guidelines on how wide and how long the field should be, a FIFA football soccer pitch, rather, has just really a set of guidelines in terms of how long and how wide the field should be, which is why you hear sometimes coaches and players talk about the size of the pitch and that having an effect on the game. It can really wildly differ from field to field. So
it definitely does. It makes your set pieces different. Obviously your corner kicks are different. I mean, this particular facility, Porter, has a state-of-the-art athletics or track and field track that goes around it. So, the turf surface that's there right now runs right up against that. We can widen it, and of course they have sort of dotted lines marking because their high school team plays in there as well. I want to widen it a little bit more if possible. If we go the field turf option and purchase that product, we might be able to get a little bit wider where the edges can kind of run off into sort of the first lane of the track would be ideal. Then you'd have to have a little bit of runoff of that. So if the border of the field is 80 yards wide, the touch lines are 80 yards wide, and you get a little, say, 5 feet on either side for a little bit of runoff, that runoff and that edge of that particular surface is going to hit the track. Well, that's just the way it's going to be. But we're trying to widen it, get it as wide as we can. I can't promise exactly how wide it's going to be now. But my goal, my hope is that we can at least get it 80 yards wide, which does change things on how you play and how other teams play us when they come in here. If they're used to playing, let's say, on a pitch, where they play on that's, say 100 yards wide or 90 yards wide or something like that. So it makes a little bit difference in terms of angles and things like that. But no promises yet. If we go the painting route, then we'll get it as wide as we can, but I don't think it'll quite get to 80 yards. So we'll see. I'll keep you informed, Porter.
We'll keep an eye out for that, and I'm sure you and I will be talking about it. And your social media has been great so far, so I'm sure we'll see as that piece of the puzzle comes together. I'm sure some nice pictures will be out there on the Rayo OKC Twitter account. So
without a doubt, exactly. Yep, you'll hear more about it soon enough. Yep.
So switching gears again here, I can tell you that the two biggest complaints we've heard, and this is more from the local community, a little bit from the NASL community. The two biggest complaints, I guess, complaints you could say, or questions. Where are the fluff items? What I would call fluff items. So all the cool stuff we can buy, scarves, kits, shirts, balls, things like that. And then secondly, we're signing some really, really awesome players. These players are not cheap. They're not scrap heap players. So what's the wage bill going to be? Where's all the money coming from? So I guess those kind of roll together in terms of what's the financial strategy of the organization? And can you speak on that a little bit for us?
I can, I'll talk about the first batch of things first, I guess. What you call fluff items, which I think is a great term, but definitely these things are important to us. But again, they just don't appear out of thin air. I'm not saying that you guys think that or anybody out there does, but to do it and do things right and find the right vendor, some of these things you want to try to, for lack of a better term, leverage for partnerships. You want to make sure you're using the right vendors and suppliers. We have engaged with 2 or 3 different, talking about specifically kits, we've engaged with a couple of different manufacturers trying to find out what our options are. And I'm not going to make any news here tonight, but soon enough the kits will be revealed. Most people that follow us closely probably could figure it out who the manufacturer is, but the reason why we haven't revealed the kits is a couple of different reasons. One, we want to do it right. 2, again, without naming names, we're out pitching marquee partnerships. We're looking for a jersey sponsor, and you really don't want to reveal your kits unless you have what's value to your marquee partner and your jersey sponsor is that when you reveal it, you get the public relations publicity out of that. So I don't want to reveal the kits and then sign a partner later and you can't do a second reveal to say, oh, and by the way, here's who's going to be on it. That's not as valuable to potential partner that if you get them on there. Now, those are no guarantee that we're going to get one. We've been fortunate enough to be able to make those presentations to a few partners in the market, and we're getting closer. And there will be a time that if the timeline happens where we're not able to sort of reveal or announce the kits or our marquee partner before it's just too late for us to do anything about before the season starts, then we'll go ahead and hold some sort of event and model the kits for everybody. And we know how important that is. It's important to us. I ask about it quite a bit, and it's really, really fun. It really gives your team an identity, allows the fans to hopefully buy in and identify with the team. And that includes also all the replica jerseys, as it were, that come in for resale, where you can resell and where fans can buy them. And again, those come over from different manufacturers. Most of them are overseas. A lot of that stuff comes from China, and of course they're in their new year, and that goes for balls and everything else. So, it just you have to design it. You have to pick your vendors. You have to order it, and they have to ship it, and you have to SKU it in. You have to have a strategy for launching it so you're ready to sell the stuff where you can. So these are all things we work on every day, but we're not going to just throw something out there to throw it out there. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it right when we do anything. And so if that means that it takes a little longer, then so be it. But specifically on the kits, that's kind of, for lack of a better term, what the holdup is there. For the balls and scarves and things like that, same thing, just going through designs, picking vendors, making sure we're doing right, deciding are we going to have one scarf, as it were, to sell, another one to give to members and supporters groups as a gift, as a thank you for joining on board. So we're going through all that kind of stuff, but it will all be here and ready to go, shiny and new, at least on opening night if we don't get anything out on the website before. We don't have any plans right now to open any retail stores or anything like that. That's a whole other business venture that we're just not ready to take on. So hopefully that kind of answers a little bit on the kits and the fluff items. And of course, we've already got some stuff from, that we've had to have for the players to work out in. Obviously, they started some of their preseason conditioning this week, and they've got some of the team stuff. But in terms of what's available for fans and what our actual game-wearing kits are, again, that's to come. In terms of the players that we're signing, that's full credit to our ownership. That's full credit to Brad and DeBray and our managing partners, full credit to Alan for having a philosophy of putting a great product on the pitch. Now, that remains to be seen. It looks really good on paper. We're signing some great people, and we're getting a lot of good positive feedback. We as an organization have 100% full confidence in Alan and his fantastic staff that they are going to push and have an exciting team that competes. Our goal is to make the playoffs. Our goal every year for every team is to, of course, win a championship. But at the very least, they understand that sometimes you make an investment up front to get your returns down the line. That is the world of professional sports launching and professional sports ownership. So when you talk about sort of the revenue, where the money's coming from obviously ownership and their philosophy and what they want to do. It's eventually going to come from our partners when we actually start generating revenue through ticket sales and things like that. Allow us to do the things we want to do, pay our players, order great supplies and great kits, put on a great show, give people in our office raises for doing a good job. But when you launch a franchise, you're not necessarily looking to be profitable in year one or by the time you open the gates, and that's not why owners buy teams. This is a launch. You raise capital. You understand what the long-term play is, and if you plan on being here for 10 or 20 years, you realize that it may take 2 or 3 years to get your equilibrium status established and on board before you start working in the black. We are concerned with budgets every single day. We are concerned with where we spend money and how we spend money. You have to be. Any good business, smart business is. But we also understand, and it's been Brad's philosophy and DeBray's and myself, and I think now Sean's and of course the folks over in Spain, that, again, if you're going to do something, you got to do it right. And that takes resources. When I say resources, that's not always about money. But again, if you want good players and you want good staff and you want good kits and you want a good stadium, you got to put the money behind it. So I guess the short answer is, where are we getting the money to pay the players? Ownership, capitalization. They understand, they have that philosophy. So, there's always a breaking point. There's always a point where they say, okay, that's enough. And they may question, who Allen's bringing in and who we're sourcing to bring in and what their player payroll is. But we negotiate with players. We negotiate with owners to get the best players we can for the most economical way we can do it. But again, we're not opposed to paying people if they're worth it. Especially the fact that, now they've got to prove it. And, if we negotiate with the player and we say, okay, here's your salary and we're going to sign you, you're going to wear that Rayo OKC badge. You're going to represent our ownership and our fan base and our team, and you're going to get out there and you're going to work hard and do what it takes to put on a good show. And Alan and his staff and everybody in our office is pushing that message everywhere we can, and those players are going to get that message. So, again, that's a long answer to say that we're not necessarily worried about that right now in the short run. We're doing and again, there's a point where everything has to come to an end in terms of what you can continue to spend. But we're doing whatever we can to put the best product on the field. And again, it looks on paper they're out working out now, and they're going to start training camp next week. And hopefully things will come together, and you'll see a really good competitive product on the field here, and things will take care of itself, and then people might not start questioning the money. With that said, last thing, and I'll shut up, obviously your payroll doesn't guarantee a championship. You look at any professional sport league around the country, and just because you have a nice, healthy payroll does not necessarily mean you're going to win anything. But I know just from being around coaches and what we talk about in the office, philosophically speaking, we got high expectations and high standards, and that philosophy will be, for lack of a better term, drilled into the players on a daily basis. We're trying to give them every tool they need, for lack of a better term, to have no excuses not to succeed.
Sure. And that's there's two really good things that I hear in there as a supporter and as someone concerned about, not concerned, concerned's not the right word to use, but who has had questions about the signings, and that's the front office knows what they're doing. So they're not just out blindly signing the biggest names that they can. And the second thing is, chemistry is still a very big part of that. So you're not just going out and finding the best available player at each position. Obviously there is a lot of thought still going into that. And although the money is there, and that's great, to me it sounds like you guys know what your limit is and you have a plan. And that's, I think, the main thing that we wanted to hear is that there is a plan, and we're not just going out to make splash signings left and right. So, well,
you just took the words out of my mouth. Some of our signings have PR value. That's the last reason we're signing any of them. The last reason. The first reason is, can they play? Are they still good? can we get them at the price we want? And do they fit what coach is trying to do on the field and what's important to us as a philosophy, as a team, in terms of character, in terms of what's expected in the community? And again, if we had 12 to 18 months, you got a lot more time to vet a lot more players. But again, part of the reason we hired Alan was because he has connections. In the NASL, I mean, it's like college recruiting. You're out there trying to convince players to come play for you. And when you're trying out there and you're vetting literally thousands of potential professional athletes, professional footballers from around the world, you got to kind of you got to have sort of a streamlined approach to that. And that comes through relationships and networking, general business savvy, clear sight of philosophy of what kind of team you want to put together. So if you call on a guy and you say, look, tell me about this guy, has he worked it? And they know what you're about. They can say, yep, this guy is exactly the kind of player you're looking for. It's going to fit into your system, not just with the X's and O's and what formation you're going to play, but is this guy going to fit in with my philosophy and our team chemistry? And are they going to work hard? And, again, we're going to miss on some guys. Again, we have a short ramp. But, yeah, when we take those things in consideration, again, it's more Alan and his staff and Debray and folks in Spain. I have a small part in it, but, I'd be lying if I said I had a huge part in it. That is all taken in consideration. I will tell you, I get, and I'm sure Alan does too, but I get probably, 20 emails a day from players all over the world, players, agents, coaches, some independent guys that are 19 years old from Brazil telling you that they know that they can be a great player, to agencies from every country that has a major football culture saying, I got players for you. It is impossible to vet every single one of them. So, again, you have to be somebody like Alan and other great coaches in our league that you work your network, you stick to what you know. Once you get a reputation, you can have a little bit better and keener eye for what you want. And then some of it's a little bit risk, right? You bring in a guy in you think's going to fit, and you hope he does. And that's the best you can do. And if it doesn't, you tweak things, right? You tweak things mid-season. You change things in the off season to eventually over time get the kind of football team you want to put together, and that's the way it works. So it's a multifaceted approach. We just have to do it in a short time window. We're in a compressing, it's a compressor, a situation here. It's just time compressed. So, but yeah, all that stuff goes into that.
All right, awesome. Really good to hear. We're going to take a quick break. Again, we're talking to Eric Neuendorf, the general manager of Rayo OKC. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Eric some more. Will's going to join us, my other co-host, and we're going to talk to Eric about the team's relationship with Rayo Vallecano and also our expectations for the team this season. Hang out with us. Welcome back to the Scissortail Podcast. We're going on our second segment now, interviewing Eric Neuendorf, the general manager for Rayo OKC. In our previous segment, you heard us talk about the team, the stadium, the atmosphere, and the players that we've signed so far. And now getting into this segment, we're happy to have Will Bowersox back with us to engage in a little bit of questioning here. And Will, I think you've got a great question for Eric to start us off this next segment.
Thanks, Porter. Eric, just want to say thank you again for taking the time to make time for the podcast. Quickly,
my pleasure, Will. Will, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Uh-huh.
Yeah, of course. I'm just curious. I think a lot of people are really wondering for more information about the Rayo Vallecano relationship. So I guess kind of a twofold question. If you could speak about, what is the day-to-day relationship like with the Madrid-based club? And then if you could maybe also speak about briefly, a quick kind of origin story. How did that relationship come into play in the first place?
Okay. I will tell you what I know. I was not part of that origin story, in those negotiations early on. I came on after that relationship was established. But, I think for future, if you guys ever felt like having Debray or Brad on, I would encourage you. They'll know a lot. They can dive into those details a little bit more than me. But on a daily basis, we're in contact with them on a daily basis. And that really is ownership, which is Mr. Pressa, as well as some of the folks that oversee the soccer operations, the technical director, and the folks that work closely with him on the on-field product. So Debray Ayala, one of our managing partners, he speaks Spanish, fluent Spanish. He is, his family's Colombian, and so he's on the phone on a daily basis with those guys, talking about all kinds of things, player signings, kits, all kinds of things. So on a daily basis, the team is engaged with those guys over in Spain. Now there's cultural differences, right? There's time differences. There's language barriers. Debray, I would say, is the main liaison, point of contact with those guys over there, mainly because he speaks their language, literally speaks their language. So what I hear, I really hear from Debray on what's going on. But he and Alan are in communication with them on a daily basis, and those cover everything you can imagine, from investment to reporting to them how we're doing in our revenue pipeline. Who we're meeting with, how many people have we signed up. So they're in the know. Now, sometimes, because you run another business and doing other things, it may take a couple of days, but my understanding is again, Debray's in contact with those guys on a daily basis. In terms of the origin story, and again, those guys will be able to answer better than me, and I probably should know better, but when they lost the source of their main funding, and again, we don't necessarily have to go into that. We can do that later if you want. But when this team was about to launch a couple of years ago, and sort of the majority owner decided not to invest with this team, it kind of went dormant while they figured out what their next move was going to be and tried to source a particular owner. And my understanding is they had a relationship with a professional coach. Was originally spec'd to be the coach of OKC FC, who they kept in contact with, and I believe he was the source of the tip. And again, I don't know the relationship that put our group in touch with the Vallecano group and started that. And pretty early on, as I heard Brad actually tell the story today in a meeting with a potential sponsor of ours, is that pretty early on when he came over and visited, they were on the same page pretty early, had the right kind of energy, understood what was going on, and they hit it off pretty quickly. So things progressed, and they had a general working agreement in a pretty short amount of time. It took a few more months and weeks to dot the I's and cross the T's on sort of the official agreement. Again, Mr. Jones, Sean Jones, one of our owners locally, he could tell you a little bit more than that as well. And they had to take a couple of trips over to Madrid and all that kind of stuff. But it seemed that once they sort of got together, they were on the same page pretty quickly in a general philosophical sense. And I think the majority of the reason why those guys wanted to be on board is just to, have more of a global brand, be able to sort of enter into this market, this emerging world soccer, world football market, and they see the potential. They're a club that, has always been, since he's been part of the ownership, to try to do things differently and have a certain work ethic and not always necessarily do things inside the box, and willing to step outside. So it's very, very unique, and we feel we're very, very fortunate to have that kind of relationship. But again, some of the sort of nitty-gritty stuff, those guys would be able to tell you more if there's more sort of more of that, those kind of minute details. But that's my understanding.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for the detail. You mentioned the cultural differences. Have you started pitching internally for a mandated siesta after lunch?
Half my staff has them anyway when I'm not looking. No, I'm just kidding. Guys, we have no time for siestas. Man, I'd kill for one. I can't even get a nightly siesta.
I was going to say we one thing we really want to do is put together an oral history of Oklahoma City FC as a franchise, but you guys keep sending out player signings and different announcements and preseason, so we never get any free time in our podcast to actually sit down and do an origin story.
No, you guys are missing the boat. This thing is a soap opera. You guys should research it, write a book. We'll share the publishing rights because somebody will pick it up. It's nuts.
Done. We'll do it.
Take you up on that.
Yeah, but all in a good way, right? Well, here we are, right?
Sure.
What's past is past. We're in the thick of it now. There's no turning back. And again, if we're going to launch on the 2nd, which we're going to, We're doing everything we can with the little time we have to make sure we're doing it right. So it's here.
Sure.
Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to try to, I hope you guys and nobody else out there says on April 3rd, whoop, success or no success, and there's the stamp. They're going to make it or not going to make it. It just doesn't work that way. The way we look at it is first impressions and everything. We're going to sell out the first 2 games. We hopefully sell it more than that, but we're going to sell out the first 2 games at a minimum. We're going to figure out a way to fill up that stadium. And then what's going to happen is, we think it's going to catch on. It's going to pick up momentum. It's going to continue to grow. But let's have this conversation a year from now, fellas. Let's have this conversation a year and a half from now. And then we can get a better assessment. Let's get us some roots established, It takes a while to not only launch a franchise, it takes a little bit of while to have a franchise take root. And, the easy position for a lot of things, and we see this out in the market, and rightly so, and I even agree with just, let's wait and see, and we'll kind of dip our toe in the water, and we want to see how well you're going to do, and you got to prove it to us, and that is all logical and fair. Well, guess what that says to me? All right, we're going to prove it. We have a track record. We know what we're doing. We're going to give it everything we have, not because we're trying to out there, quote unquote, prove the haters wrong. That has nothing to do with it. It's just, all right, we get you. We understand. Let's prove it to you. And then you're going to say, you guys got it. You did right. This is a good thing, and we'll establish our roots. And so let's not try to determine whether they're going to be, quote unquote, successful after 1, 2, 3 games. Let's see where we are mid-season. Let's see where we are come November. And really, honestly, let's see where we are come launch in spring of 2017 once, we've had a chance to grow our roots here, get more fans, get more sponsors on board, prove what kind of product we can be, and have people want to affiliate with us. Because that's what it comes down to. It's people who want to attach themselves to your club because they want to feel proud of that. And that comes from sponsorships, from fans, because we represent the community you're in, and we do things with a certain philosophy and a certain ethic that you want to attach yourself to. And so if we stick to those principles and stick to that philosophy and keep working hard, we think eventually things will work out in our favor. That's the goal.
Definitely.
That sounds awesome.
Speaking of the season ahead, and, as much as insight into this as you might have, do you know, are there plans for the Madrid club to send players over during the season? Or is there, is that part of their development plan? Will we see Rayo Vallecano to Madrid players in Oklahoma City?
I honestly can't say yes or no, but I believe I can say in confidence that, we've had, in the public that, yes, that those discussions have been had between people that work on that end. I couldn't name names. Even if I could, I wouldn't. But those they've had those discussions. I don't necessarily think that they look at our franchise as a place to put players to develop. As just that's not the reason why they necessarily invested in the club. However, it's only logical for that to happen. And I can promise you that would be great for us. If we can say we have a couple of their, up-and-comers coming over here and playing and contribute to our guys and getting better and, they become hot prospects and they move on and sign at some first division club, whether it be in Spain or anywhere else, that's great. So we actually hope that happens. I just don't think they've settled on anybody in particular.
How about a postseason tour for Rayo OKC across the pond over in Spain to have a couple of friendlies with Rayo Vallecano? That would be a pretty nice trip.
Yeah, I haven't been privy to any of those conversations, but if it happens, I hope to be on that plane. I like that trip.
You and me both.
I mean, I'm gonna lobby for a spot on that plane, and I'll give you guys sort of what do they call those, traveling press credentials. You guys can come with us.
Great.
Awesome. Well, we should talk about that Puerto Rico trip then.
Well, the thing about it is, as you guys can imagine, it's like sometimes people ask, well, why are you going to have any home preseason games? Well, no, we got our hands full. We're not going to do anything preseason wise that isn't our full effort in terms of making first impressions. And a lot of times you do preseason games and it's just, it just doesn't come across like you want it. As well as trying to plan trips overseas to make those tours. I need to see some clubs around the league right now, to their credit, going over there and doing things. And those are things that we'll definitely talk about for, year 2, year 3 down the road. But we got our hands full getting open by April 2nd to even consider not only just the time it would take, but the investment that it would take in terms of the money, as well as, we haven't got a club that's gelled yet. Let's at least have a product. And so, that we can, that's got a little cohesion to it before we sort of venture off those. We got our hands full with what's right in front of us right here. So, but those are definitely things clubs do. Definitely things we want to look into. Again, we want to be a club that innovates. We want to be a club that tries things new. And I think it would be great for both brands. I know you guys. I assume you guys have sort of paid attention to what's happening in Madrid and kind of how their fans. A lot of the diehards think about us. I don't think it'd be the best time for us to go over there right now, even if we wanted to, and play those guys. But I think it'd be fun. Yeah. So keep lobbying for that and stay on us, and we'll see what we can do in the coming years.
Yeah, I'm not sure a Laurel and a hearty handshake would really make them feel any better right now. But
no, exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully, both sides can find success, and then in the future we can. The supporters groups can see eye to eye. So speaking of that, and speaking of finding success, do you know, or are you privy to share any? Is there any danger to the Oklahoma City club if Rayo Vallecano does happen to fall into the relegation zone at the end of the season?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't know. I can't say. We have not had those discussions. Of course, we watch their spot in the table pretty closely. If anybody knows that question, it would be DeBray. That'd be something for him to ask. My guess is they haven't had those conversations again because we're worried, or not worried. We're engaged with those guys to launch our franchise and get it off the ground in the best way possible. So, that really doesn't enter into our plans. It's literally one of those, sounds like a cliche, but it's one of those things we're just going to have to cross that bridge when we come to it, and hope we never do. Hopefully they'll stay up and it's just a moot point. But no, it's nothing that we're having to concern ourselves in terms of, Vallecano OKC. We're not concerned with that. We got, like I said, plenty of things to do to make sure we're off the ground. And again, if we do things right and we launch right and put on a good product, then, we're going to be off on our own footing, and we'll be strong enough to stand on our own and do our own thing, regardless of sort of what position or what league those guys across the pond end up playing in. So I guess the short answer is no. I don't know that information. I've not been privy to any of those discussions whatsoever. If they're happening, I'm not involved in them. But again, I don't think any of that is any concern of the Oklahoma City club at this time.
Right on. So, Eric, just a couple more questions for you. And again, we appreciate your time. Just if you could just kind of throw a dart on the wall for us, what are your expectations for the team and the club this season?
Boy, that is a big question there, Will. Expectations. To deliver a fan experience that is well worth the investment of people's money and time, and that's every detail you can imagine. But if that includes what's happening on the field of play, I know it's Alan's expectation and everybody on his staff that we are a competitive team right out of the gate, and we got an eye on the playoffs. That's our expectation. There's a honeymoon period. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that is the expectation of what is going to happen. We're going to be very, very competitive. And when fans come to the stadium, and we hope they come in droves, that they're going to go, wow, this is a fun, great, incredible atmosphere. This team is really fun to watch. These people that we engage with at the stadium are friendly. They're nice. They're going to help you. Man, this beer tastes good. That music is awesome. That girl over there is good looking. That guy over there is really cool. I mean, the full-on gamut of an experience well worth your money. Again, are we going to be perfect? Absolutely not. Are we going to make mistakes? Probably. We're going to mitigate those. But again, the short answer for expectations is establish a really strong fan base, get people really excited about our club, something they can be proud of, and that includes, like I said, everything from your experience parking in the parking lot to the kind of product that Alan and his staff is putting together on the pitch. And all of those things work hand in hand, I can promise you. And so our expectations is nothing but high standards and success. That's our expectation.
That's awesome. So I know that the Madrid club, Rayo Vallecano, actually developed a smartphone app for their fan base that functions as a in-stadium Tinder-like app, like a dating app. Do you anticipate developing something similar for the Oklahoma City?
We're rolling it out tomorrow, Will. You're making news here tonight.
All right. Well, my wife's not listening.
I wouldn't say that we're going to have a Rayo in-stadium Tinder type app. I guess I need to research that a little bit more. But I will tell you that we'll have something that is more of a we're very, very close to launching a product that is an application and a web-based application that is close to a fan rewards program that will allow us to do a lot of fun things in the stadium for fans. Earning points and checking in with the team. And there's a company that we're working with right now, and it's all again, I'm not trying to make news, and I don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but we're all on the same page about making it happen, and we just got to figure out what the final details are and then get it designed. It usually takes about 2 or 3 weeks to finalize everything before we can launch it. So we're probably a month away, but we will have something fun for our fans to be able to use, and engage our team with their smartphones. It's just not. I don't think it has a Tinder application on it right now, but I'll see what I can do for you, buddy.
Well, how about this?
If you need help, let me know. I can figure something out for you, bud.
I think, Eric, if we had our pick of what we'd like you to be working on as a fan, I think we'd rather you work on maybe making sure we have an awesome field to play on than a field to play in the stadium, if you know what I mean.
Well done, sir. Well done. Well, you rest assured, rest your pretty little head tonight that I can promise you I spend a lot of hours every day, as well as do a lot of our great people and our great staff trying to make that happen. And so that is where our time is being spent, I promise you. And, awesome. You'll start to see us a little bit more out there. There's just so many things to do. We're trying to put together our media partnerships right now and, really try to find the right sort of launch windows, as it were, to step up the effort from what I would call sort of a pure branding or marketing thing. There are budgets to consider, but mostly it's really about partnerships. It's just finding the right media partners to work with, coming up with the right program. A lot of what you'll see that eventually you'll see in the market is going to be geared toward people coming on opening night. So there hasn't been a whole lot of sort of general branding yet. We're more of a grassroots effort. We do a little bit here and there. We've got some radio and some other things going out. But when you start to see sort of the big marketing push, it's probably going to be, a month, 4 to 6 weeks out. And a lot of that geared toward getting people focused on coming on opening night. So a lot more news to come. We try to stay relevant and put good news out there on a daily basis. But there's a lot of fun things to come, from kit reveal to mascot reveal to pitch reveal to hopefully signing a marquee partner to starting to roll out our marketing. So we've done a lot to date, but there's just so much more to come between now and opening night. And so stay tuned.
Definitely. Well, Eric, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And we are looking forward to seeing what the season ahead holds, and certainly the seasons beyond that. So with that, we will let you go, and we'll look forward to staying in touch moving forward.
Thanks for the time, and keep up the good work, fellas. Appreciate you.
All right. He was Eric Neuendorp. He's the general manager for Rayo OKC, and we were happy to have him on. Stay with us. After the break, we're going to quickly talk about training camp, just getting started. Lots of pictures coming out from the Rayo OKC Twitter page, so stay with us.
All right, wow. What an awesome 2 segments of interview that was. That
if you're still listening, thank you.
Yeah, that was one of the main reasons why we didn't want to have an episode last week. We knew this one was going to be full of information. We hope that you guys are out there as excited as we are by some of the answers that Eric gave us, and clearly the club is not trying to hide anything from anyone. So they just have been focusing their efforts on doing what they're doing instead of telling everyone what they're doing. So
Center Tail Pod gets the scoop.
That's right. Again. That's right. We got the first interview with the general manager for Rayo OKC. So real quickly, we're going to get into some free talk, which includes still some items about the club. They started training this week. The Under Armour balls were spotted at training and then subsequently officially announced, I think, by the NASL today. So some mixed emotions over those. And then Under Armour also confirmed to be the shoe sponsor, shoe provider for the team. So hopefully we'll see some cool kicks there. And then in the pictures coming out of training camp, as you mentioned earlier, Will, at least 3 players spotted in pictures now that are still unannounced. 2 goalkeepers, Lance Parker, noted goalkeeper and male model. Brian Byers, noted goalkeeper and Oklahoma City product. And then Joel Lindpier, who is an Estonian midfielder who has previous MLS experience.
Okay. So, closing the loop on the Brian Byers rumor.
I think so, yeah. And so, the question is, why haven't they been announced yet? Are they just stringing out the announcements over some time, or is there another reason for them to be in camp?
Unclear. So I guess the question to keep our fingers on is, are they just training camp players, or are they just waiting to sign? Right. So other news, this is big, I think. So Kelmy was confirmed as the clothing sponsor. So same sponsor as the parent club in Madrid, and I really shouldn't even say parent club, but there were rumors running out there that Nike was going to be on the kit, but Kelmy it is. And what are your? I mean, we're not a fashion design blog, but what are your reactions to the pictures that you've seen?
I think they look really cool. I like the red and black, obviously. I like the red and white tops. The Rayo Oklahoma at the bottom is pretty cool.
I didn't even see that.
If you notice that,
yeah,
right at the base of the back bottom of the warm-up top, the black warm-up top says Rayo Oklahoma. So if they sell those, I will buy at least one, if not multiples. The blue and green that the coaches wear, I know.
Does that ungrind your gears?
I'm gushing about it, I guess. But yeah, I think Kelmy as a brand is pretty high quality. So that is everything really club related we have to talk about. But Will, I know you've been traveling this week. You moved last week, or I guess the week before last, and you've had a lot on your mind, and you got something you want to get off your chest. So if you've listened this long, be prepared for a tirade from Will Bowersox.
I don't know if thank you. I don't know if tirade is the right word, but maybe. The news came out that the friendly with the Houston Dynamo was canceled. And this has become apparently a big deal, or it was 2 weeks ago.
Now, let me clarify. By news, you mean Kyle Solomon, the marketing director for the team. When we tweeted at him, we being you and I from the Sister Tail Podcast account, said, hey, preseason schedule came out. The Dynamo game's not on there. Is that going to be played? He said the game had to be canceled. So that's how it came out.
Right. And just, we're living in the land of social media and social media as a platform for gotcha journalism. And so it some of the tweets we were seeing, it was coming across like this is such an indictment of the club. It's further proof that they're not real, that it's not going to work. Like, my thing is calendar appointments get canceled and rescheduled every day.
And let me just say that I think we didn't ask Eric, but I'm sure if we had, he was transparent with us about everything else. He would probably have looked down and said, today is February 10th. The game was scheduled to be played on February 17th. We started training camp 3 days ago. You really think we're going to put a side against an MLS team? They're not out there saying, he's not out there saying we're the best team in the world. So, I mean, even if they did cancel the game because the team wasn't ready, that's a smart business decision.
Let's take a non-issue and really make it an issue when we lose probably a pretty embarrassing scoreline. And then you'd really have a negative momentum storyline, which could be completely unjustified. But one tweet came across that was so ludicrous that I have to say something about it. I'm not going to name names. the tweet was deleted, and after I read it, you'll see why. At ScissorTailPod, at two other people. Again, I ask, what happened with Houston? ? Your team is a joke. Hashtag not OKC. Unhashtag. Again, I ask. I guess I missed the first time that you asked. And are we in a court of law? Like
Inquisition.
Is this the Spanish Inquisition? I mean, I would have deleted this tweet as well. It's so ridiculous.
They're just fishing. They're just out there.
Yeah, it's just gotcha journalism standing on your social media platform provided 4-inch soapbox. So this is a very un-community service chairman-like tweet to send. And
I'm not sure the kids from Fields and Futures would have liked the content of that tweet.
I guess thank you for deleting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yep. We're all about growing. We're all about growing the game in Oklahoma City, unless it's another team in the city, or not in the city.
Oh, apparently, yeah.
We're in Yukon.
We should have asked Eric about the progress of building the wall around
exactly.
Yukon.
Yeah.
So
I heard it's going to be gold lined now.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And they might include actually the city of Mustang.
Yeah,
so Mustang
good.
and Yukon have put their differences aside, so that Mustang can be included in the Great Wall of you Mustang. All right, that's it for this week.
Thanks for listening.
We're at a ridiculously long episode for what we're used to, so I hope it was worth it to you guys, and we'll be back next week. Hit us up if you got any questions, if we got anything wrong, at ScissorTailPod on the Twitter, ScissorTailPod@gmail.com if you got something longer than 140 characters. Thanks.